a nondescript house, a rented storefront, and beneath it, a hand-dug tunnel stretching almost 3 football fields, built in total secrecy, right under the city. 25 men gambled everything to pull off a cash theft worth $70 million, vanishing without a trace. But how did this elaborate heist unfold beneath everyone's nose? The answer is not just about what they stole. It is about how nothing, neighbors, alarms, or daylight, could stop them. This is the true story of the tunnel that rewrote the rules of crime. The house looked like any other on the block, a faded sign, a patch of grass, nothing to draw a second glance. But for the man behind the plan, this address was everything. He spent weeks studying maps, walking the streets, and running calculations. He needed a property close enough to the bank's vault for a straight-line attack, but far enough to avoid the reach of surface alarms and the gaze of security cameras. Every detail mattered. The soil beneath the house, the distance to the vault, the pattern of foot traffic outside. The search narrowed to one spot, a rental just a block away, where the geometry lined up perfectly with the vault's thick concrete floor. A legitimate business was the only way in. So, a landscaping company was set up in the front, with trucks and tools coming and going at all hours. Neighbors saw nothing unusual. Deliveries, early starts, late nights, exactly what you would expect from a busy crew. What no one noticed was the real work happening below. The mastermind's choice was not just about hiding in plain sight. It was about control. From this house, he could direct every move, keep the team close, and monitor the slow, silent progress beneath the city. The ordinary storefront was not a weakness. It was the perfect shield for a job that demanded absolute precision. On paper, the landscaping business looked ordinary. A fresh sign hung over the door, promising reliable yard work and garden design. The landlord, eager for steady rent, barely asked questions. Cash changed hands each month, no paperwork, no trail, just a handshake and a promise to keep the place tidy. Neighbors grew used to the routine, unmarked vans idling along the curb, men in work shirts unloading bags of soil and hauling tools inside. The steady hum of activity blended into the neighborhood's daily rhythm. No one questioned why the business never seemed to have clients. The front yard stayed unchanged, and the only real landscaping happened behind closed doors. The crew kept to themselves, polite but distant. They waved at passing dog walkers and offered a nod to the mailman, never inviting anyone in. The landlord, pleased with the on-time payments, rarely visited. Even the busiest person on the block found nothing to gossip about. Every detail was calculated to avoid suspicion. The vans served a double purpose, bringing in supplies and quietly taking away hundreds of pounds of dirt. The men worked in shifts, always arriving before dawn or after dusk, making sure their comings and goings matched the hours of a real business. The fake company became a shield, hiding the real operation beneath a layer of normalcy that no one thought to question. All the while, just beyond the locked back door, the ground was about to open up. Beneath the rented house, the silence was broken only by the scrape of shovels and the low rumble of earth being moved. 25 men squeezed into a passage barely wide enough for a grown man's shoulders, working in shifts around the clock. The tunnel stretched 256 feet under a busy city street, dropping 13 feet below the surface, deep enough to avoid detection, but close enough to feel every vibration from trucks overhead. Every inch was reinforced with timber beams and plastic sheeting, a makeshift skeleton holding back the weight of the city above. Electric lights snaked along the walls, casting harsh shadows that never faded, while an improvised ventilation system pumped in stale, recycled air. Each night, nearly a ton of soil had to disappear. The crew stuffed dirt into sacks, hauling them up through the house and out to waiting vans, always careful to blend in with the landscaping business cover. The operation never paused. Sweat soaked through clothes, hands blistered and raw, but the tunnel inched forward, sometimes just a few feet a day. One night, A sharp hiss cut through the darkness. A pickaxe had struck a hidden water pipe, sending a torrent of muddy water rushing into the shaft. Panic surged as men scrambled to plug the flow, bailing water with buckets, fighting to keep the tunnel from collapsing. For hours, they worked in darkness, the air thick with fear and the smell of wet earth. The engineer, a former construction foreman, never left the site. He calculated the angles, checked the beams, and pushed the crew through exhaustion and doubt. Every setback tested their resolve, but quitting was never an option. The vault was close, so close they could almost feel the cool air drifting down from the bank above. A sudden jolt ran through the tunnel as the drill finally broke through. For a moment, no one moved. Then, a blast of cool, recycled air from the vault above swept down the shaft, carrying with it the faint, metallic scent of cash. The crew stared at the jagged hole in the concrete, adrenaline pounding in their veins. Months of silent labor had led to this. One perfect breach, timed for a Saturday night when the city above was lost in weekend routine. Inside the vault, stacks of bundled bills rose in neat columns, untouched and waiting. The men moved with a mix of disbelief and discipline, each step rehearsed 100 times. They slid through the opening, boots landing softly on the vault floor. No alarms, no guards, only the hum of distant traffic and the echo of their own breathing. Working in shifts, they loaded sack after sack, each one heavier than the last. For 48 straight hours, the operation never paused. Bags of money traveled down the tunnel, passed hand to hand in a silent chain. The air was thick with sweat and tension, but no one spoke above a whisper. Above them, the bank's business carried on as usual, oblivious to the fortune vanishing below. Euphoria threatened to break their focus, but discipline held. Every movement was calculated. Each man knew his role. By the time the last sack disappeared into the darkness, more than $70 million had changed hands without a single alarm tripped. The tunnel that had nearly broken them now led straight into legend, leaving nothing behind but a hole in the floor and a question no one could answer. How did they get away with it? Months of planning and discipline unraveled in a single, careless moment. One crew member, flush with stolen cash, walked into a luxury car dealership and paid in full. No questions, no financing, just a fat stack of crisp banknotes. What he didn't know was that the bills, bundled straight from the Banco Central vault, carried sequential serial numbers. When the dealership deposited the cash, a routine check flagged the notes as part of the missing fortune. Federal police moved quickly, tracing the sale back to the buyer. Forensic teams began matching serial numbers, piecing together a trail that led from the car lot to hidden safe houses and shell companies. Within weeks, authorities recovered nearly $8.5 million, just a fraction of the total haul, but enough to prove the perfect crime had a fatal flaw. The smallest slip, a flash of greed, cracked open the case and set off a wave of arrests. 3 years passed before the mastermind was finally caught. In 2008, federal agents tracked him down in a quiet neighborhood, hundreds of miles from Fortaleza. He had lived under false names, moving between cities, hiding behind layers of shell companies and loyal middlemen. By the time of his arrest, investigators had unraveled a web of properties, houses, farms, even gas stations, registered to relatives and associates. Yet for all the seizures and convictions, the numbers never added up. Out of the original fortune, nearly $50 million was still missing. Some believed it was hidden in secret accounts. Others whispered about buried cash or offshore havens. The truth was never found. Even as police closed the file, the bulk of the loot remained unclaimed, feeding rumors that somewhere, the perfect crime had left its mark and its riches on the world. Today, over $60 million from this heist remains unaccounted for, an invisible fortune that still echoes through Brazil's criminal underworld. As security evolves, So do those determined to outsmart it. The true cost is not just vanishing money. It is the uneasy reminder that beneath our streets, secrets are always being written.